There is a certain kind of quiet that settles over a home when everyone has gone to sleep. It is in that stillness, in those late hours, when the world stops asking things of you, that the deepest questions tend to rise to the surface. And maybe tonight, or perhaps many nights before this one, you have found yourself wondering about someone. Not just in passing, but in a way that sits heavy on your chest. You have wondered if they think of you too. You have wondered if what you felt was real, or if your heart simply made up a story to comfort itself. And somewhere in the middle of that wondering, a thought crept in that you have been afraid to speak out loud. You have wondered if you are worth the cost of being chosen. I want to sit with you in that question for a while, because I think there is something sacred buried inside it. Something that has nothing to do with romance in the shallow sense, and everything to do with how deeply you have been loved before you ever knew you were being loved. Let me tell you something that I have come to understand after many years of walking with people through their hardest seasons. There is a kind of love that does not announce itself with fireworks. It does not arrive with applause or public celebration. Sometimes the truest love is the kind that makes a decision in silence, in the hidden places where no one else is watching. It is the kind of love that counts the cost and chooses anyway. And if you are listening to this, I believe with everything in me that someone somewhere has made that kind of decision for you. Not because you demanded it, not because you pressured them, but because something in their spirit recognized something in yours, and they could not walk away from it, no matter how much easier walking away would have been. I want you to understand that love which requires sacrifice is not lesser love. In fact, Scripture tells us the opposite. Jesus himself said that there is no greater love than the kind that lays down its own life for another. Now, I am not speaking of physical death in this moment. I am speaking of the small deaths we experience when we choose one path and close the door on another. I am speaking of the death of approval, the death of comfort, the death of the familiar. When someone goes against the expectations of their family for you, they are not simply making a romantic gesture. They are stepping into a wilderness they have never walked before. They are releasing the safety of what they have always known and reaching for something their heart tells them is true, even when everyone around them says otherwise. That is not a small thing, and you should not shrink from the weight of what it means. I think sometimes we are so desperate to be loved that we forget to honor the love we are given. We downplay it. We question it. We poke holes in it because we have been conditioned to believe that anything good must come with a catch. But I want to ask you something gently tonight. What if there is no catch? What if someone simply saw you, truly saw you, and decided that you were worth the disruption? What if God allowed your paths to cross, not as an accident, but as an answer to a prayer you had been whispering for years? You see, we often imagine that God only works through ease and open doors, but the truth is far more textured than that. Sometimes, God works through resistance. Sometimes, the very opposition that surrounds a connection is evidence that something real is being built. Think about it this way. The enemy of your soul has no interest in disrupting what does not matter. He does not waste energy on shallow attachments or fleeting infatuations. But when two people are brought together for a purpose that carries weight, when their union has the potential to create something beautiful and lasting, that is when the resistance rises. That is when families become divided. That is when circumstances become complicated. That is when doubt floods in like water through a cracked foundation. But here is what I need you to hear clearly. Resistance is not the same as rejection. Difficulty is not the same as denial. Just because the road is hard does not mean you are walking in the wrong direction. Sometimes the hard road is the only road that leads where you are meant to go. I think about Ruth in the Bible, and I know her story is often told in church, but I wonder if we really understand what she gave up. She was a Moabite woman. She came from a people who were despised by the Israelites. And when her husband died, she had every reason to go back to her family, to return to the familiar, to find safety in what she had always known. But she looked at Naomi, her mother-in-law, and she made a declaration that still echoes through centuries. She said, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." She was not just choosing a companion. She was choosing a future that had no guarantees. She was choosing a path that would take her far from everything she understood. And here is what I find most remarkable about her story. She did not make that choice because she knew how it would end. She did not know that Boaz was waiting for her in a field she had never seen. She did not know that she would become part of the lineage of kings, part of the very bloodline that would bring the Messiah into the world. She knew none of that. All she knew was that something in her spirit told her to stay. Something in her heart refused to let go, that leading, even when it made no logical sense. I wonder if someone in your life has made a similar choice. Not with the drama of ancient scripture, but in the quiet, modern way that such choices unfold today. Maybe they had a conversation with their parents that left everyone in tears. Maybe they have been carrying the weight of disapproval from people whose opinions once shaped their entire identity. Maybe they have lost sleep, lost friends, lost standing in their family, all because something in them could not let go of you. And if that is true, I want you to take a moment right now to let that reality settle into your bones. You are not an afterthought. You are not a mistake someone made in a moment of weakness. You are worth fighting for. You are worth the cost, and no amount of past rejection can erase that truth. I know that some of you listening have a hard time believing you are worth that kind of love. I know because I have been there myself. I know what it feels like to look in the mirror and see only the failures, only the shortcomings, only the long list of reasons why someone should walk away. But I need you to understand something that has taken me years to learn. Your worth is not determined by who stayed and who left. Your worth was established before you ever took your first breath. The psalmist wrote that God knit you together in your mother's womb, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that was not poetry meant to make you feel better in a difficult moment. That was a declaration of truth that stands regardless of how you feel about yourself on any given day. You were created with intention. You were designed with purpose. And the love that is meant for you will recognize that design, even when you cannot see it clearly yourself. Now I want to address something that I think needs to be said with care. When I speak of someone going against their family for you, I am not speaking of chaos. I am not speaking of destruction for its own sake. True love does not seek to tear down. True love does not rejoice in broken relationships or fractured families. But sometimes in the complexity of human life, people are placed in situations where they must choose between the expectations placed upon them and the truth that burns in their own hearts. This is not about rebellion. This is about obedience to a higher calling. There is a passage in the Gospels where Jesus speaks words that are often difficult to hear. He says that he did not come to bring peace, but a sword. He says that he came to set a man against his father and a daughter against her mother. And for many years, I struggled with those words, because they seemed harsh, almost cruel. But as I grew in understanding, I came to see what Jesus was truly saying. He was not celebrating division. He was acknowledging the reality that following truth will sometimes put you at odds with those who want you to live a smaller life. He was recognizing that the kingdom of God does not always align with the expectations of earthly kingdoms, even the small kingdoms of our own families. And when someone chooses to follow the leading of their heart toward you, even when it creates tension with those they love, they are not being disrespectful. They are being faithful. Faithful to something they cannot fully explain, but cannot deny. Now, I want to pause here and say something important for those who may be listening and feeling a different kind of weight. Maybe you are not the one being chosen. Maybe you are the one who has had to make a difficult choice. Maybe you are the one who has felt the sting of disapproval, the cold silence of family members who do not understand, loneliness of walking a path that no one around you supports. If that is you, I want you to know that I see you. I honor the courage it takes to follow your heart when everyone is telling you to play it safe. I honor the strength it requires to believe in something when you are the only one who can see it. And I want to remind you that you are not alone. Abraham left his father's house and walked toward a land he had never seen, simply because God told him to go. Moses turned his back on the palace of Egypt and chose to suffer alongside his people, rather than enjoy the temporary pleasures of a life that was not his own. David was anointed as king while his own father initially overlooked him, while his brothers dismissed him, while the current king hunted him like an animal through the wilderness. Over and over again, Scripture shows us that those who are called to something greater often walk through seasons where the people closest to them do not understand. But the lack of understanding from others does not invalidate the truth of what you have been called to. It simply means you must hold on to faith when you cannot hold on to approval. And that is perhaps one of the hardest lessons any of us ever have to learn. I believe there is something that God wants to reveal to you tonight. And it is not a secret in the way the world defines secrets. It is not hidden information that gives you power over others. It is something far more precious than that. The secret is this: the love that is meant for you has already been fighting for you in ways you cannot see. Before you knew their name, before you saw their face, something was being prepared. Not in a mystical, otherworldly sense, but in the practical, day-by-day unfolding of two lives that were always meant to intersect. I think of the verse in Ephesians where Paul writes that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. And I think about how often we limit our imagination when it comes to love. We think we know what we need. We create lists and checklists and standards that seem so important in the moment. But God, in His infinite wisdom, often brings us something we never thought to ask for. Someone who sees our wounds and is not afraid of them. Someone who understands our silence as clearly as they understand our words. Someone who chooses us not because we are perfect, but because they cannot imagine walking through life without us. That kind of love is not earned. It is not manufactured through strategy or manipulation. It is a gift. And when a gift like that requires sacrifice to receive, the sacrifice does not diminish the gift. It reveals its true value. I want to encourage you right now, wherever you are listening to this, to release the anxiety you have been carrying about whether you are enough. You have spent so much energy trying to prove your worth to people who may never see it. You have twisted yourself into shapes that do not fit you, hoping that somehow the contortion would make you lovable. But the truth is, you do not need to become someone else to be loved. You need to become more fully yourself. The person who is meant for you is not looking for a performance. They are looking for presence. They are looking for someone who is willing to be honest, to be real, to show up imperfectly and stay committed to growth. And if someone has already stepped toward you in defiance of easier options, that tells you something profound about how they see you. They do not see the version of yourself that you hide from others. They see the version you are afraid to believe in, and they are choosing that version. The real one. The unpolished, complicated, beautifully imperfect one. I think about the words of Solomon in the Song of Songs, how he describes love as strong as death, its jealousy as unyielding as the grave. He says that many waters cannot quench love, and rivers cannot sweep it away. That is not the language of convenience. That is not the language of something that gives up at the first sign of difficulty. That is the language of something that endures, something that holds on, even when holding on requires everything. If you have found that kind of love, or if that kind of love has found you, I want you to treat it with the reverence it deserves. Do not take it for granted. Do not assume it will always be there simply because it has survived until now. Love, real love, is a living thing. It needs to be fed. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be spoken out loud and demonstrated in actions that match the words. And if someone has chosen you at a cost, honor that choice by becoming the best version of yourself. Not for them, but for the life you are building together. Now, I want to speak for a moment to those who are still waiting. Maybe you are listening to this and you have not yet found the person who will choose you against all odds. Maybe you are in a season of silence, a season of wondering, a season of asking God if your prayers are even being heard. I want to tell you that your waiting is not wasted. There is a purpose in the pause that you may not be able to see right now. Just as a farmer does not dig up the seed to check if it is growing, you cannot rush the process of what God is doing beneath the surface of your life. The waiting is part of the preparation. In the waiting, you are learning what you truly need. You are releasing the fantasies that would have left you empty. You are growing into someone who can receive what is coming without being overwhelmed by it. I have seen so many people rush into connections because they were afraid of being alone, only to find themselves lonelier than they ever were in solitude. I have seen people settle for crumbs when a feast was being prepared for them just around the corner. I have seen people abandon their standards at the first sign of interest, only to regret it when they realized they had traded their peace for the illusion of companionship. Do not be one of those people. Be patient with yourself and with the process. Trust that God's timing is not a punishment. It is a protection. He is not withholding from you because He delights in your pain. He is preparing something that will be worth every night you spent wondering. And when it comes, you will understand why nothing else was allowed to take its place. That you are here. That you chose to spend this time listening to these words. If this message has touched something in your heart, if it has given you comfort or perspective, or even just a moment of peace, I want to invite you to subscribe to the Angelic Lights channel so that we can continue walking together through these reflections. This is a space where you are always welcome, where you do not have to perform or prove yourself, where you can simply rest in the truth that you are loved beyond measure. Before I close, I want to offer you a word of blessing. Not as someone who has all the answers, because I certainly do not, but as someone who has walked long enough to know that God's faithfulness is not dependent on our ability to understand it. May you find peace in the uncertainty. May you trust the love that has been fighting for you in the quiet places. May you release the need to know how everything will unfold and simply rest in the knowledge that you are held by hands far steadier than your own. And may you never forget that you are worth choosing, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Not because of what you offer, but because of how you love. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. The one who is meant for you will see that. And when they do, no force on earth will be able to convince them to look away. If this message has spoken to you, leave a word of gratitude in the comments below. Not for me, but for yourself, as a declaration of the hope you are choosing to hold on to. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight, someone who is wrestling with the same questions you have been carrying. And know that wherever you are, whatever season you are walking through, you are not walking alone. God is with you. His love surrounds you, and the best of what He has prepared for you is still unfolding, one quiet moment at a time. I want to leave you with one final thought, something that I have returned to again and again in my own moments of doubt. In the book of Jeremiah, God speaks words that have carried millions of people through their darkest nights. He says, "I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Those words were not spoken to people who had their lives figured out. They were spoken to a nation in exile, a people who had lost everything, a community wondering if God had abandoned them. And in that moment of despair, God reminded them that His plans do not end where our understanding ends. His purposes are not limited by our circumstances. And even when we cannot see the road ahead, He is already there, preparing something we could never prepare for ourselves. So hold on, keep believing, keep trusting, even when trust feels like a muscle you have forgotten how to use. The love that is meant for you will find you. And when it does, you will understand that every tear, every question, every lonely night was part of the journey that led you home. Be at peace, my friend. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. And the one who chose you against all odds will never regret that choice. Not for a single moment. Not for the rest of their life. Some loves are tested because they are meant to last. And the testing does not weaken them. It reveals what was always there. A bond that cannot be broken. A connection that was written before either of you knew how to read. A love that will outlast every obstacle placed in its way. That is what has been fighting for you. That is what you have been waiting for. And that is what is coming, quietly, steadily, in God's perfect time. Believe it, receive it, and let your heart finally rest in the truth that you have always deserved to be chosen. This is the end of tonight's reflection, but it is not the end of your story. Your story is still being written, and the best chapters are waiting just beyond the horizon. Until next time, walk in faith, walk in hope, and never forget how deeply, how completely, how endlessly you are loved. God bless you, my friend. And may His peace, the kind that surpasses all understanding, guard your heart and your mind from this moment forward. I want to sit with you a little longer tonight, because I sense that there are some of you who are carrying burdens that go beyond what we have already discussed. Maybe you have been hurt before. Maybe someone promised you the world and then disappeared when the first sign of difficulty appeared. Maybe you have trusted and been betrayed, loved and been abandoned, hoped and been disappointed so many times that hope itself has started to feel like a dangerous thing. I understand. I have walked that road. I have felt the sting of promises that turned to ash in my hands. And I have wondered, just as you have wondered, if my heart could ever be safe with another person. But I need you to hear something that took me far too long to learn. The failures of others do not define your future. The people who could not love you well were not the final word on your worthiness of love. They were simply not the right people. And their inability to see your value says everything about their vision and nothing about your worth. I think about the woman at the well, the one Jesus met in the heat of the day when no one else was around. She had been married 5 times, and the man she was with at that moment was not her husband. By the standards of her community, she was a failure. She was an outcast, specifically to avoid the judgment of others who would have looked at her with contempt. But Jesus did not look at her that way. He saw past her history. He saw past her shame. He saw a soul that was thirsty for something deeper than any human relationship had ever given her. And in that one conversation, He offered her water that would never run dry. I share this story because I want you to know that God does not see you the way your failures suggest He should. He does not add up your mistakes and calculate whether you deserve good things. He looks at you with eyes of compassion, eyes that see the full picture, eyes that understand the wounds behind your worst decisions. And from that place of complete understanding, He still chooses to bless you. He still chooses to love you. He still has a plan for your heart that includes redemption, restoration, and yes, even romance if that is your desire. You to believe that your past disqualifies you from a beautiful future. He wants you to carry shame like a weight around your neck, convincing you that you do not deserve the kind of love that chooses you against all odds. But that is a lie. And tonight, I want you to set that lie down. Not because the past did not happen, but because the past does not have the power to determine what comes next. Only God has that power. And He specializes in writing redemption stories with the very people the world has written off. If someone is choosing you right now, despite opposition, despite difficulty, despite the easier options that surround them, I want you to consider the possibility that this is part of your redemption story. Maybe you never thought you would be fought for. Maybe you had resigned yourself to a life of settling, of accepting less than what your heart truly longed for. But what if God had other plans? He saw your resignation and responded with something that would shake you awake to your own value? Love that costs something is not love to be suspicious of. It is love to be grateful for. When someone is willing to sacrifice for you, they are showing you something about their character that words alone could never prove. They are demonstrating through action what they believe about your worth. And while you may struggle to believe it about yourself, their actions are speaking a truth that your heart needs to hear. Let their choosing of you become a mirror that reflects back your own value. Let their willingness to walk through fire become evidence that you are worth the flames. And let their persistence in the face of opposition remind you that you were never meant to be an afterthought in someone's story. You were meant to be the chapter that changed everything. Now, I know that some of you are wondering about the practical realities of what it means when someone goes against their family for you. You are thinking about the holidays that might be uncomfortable, the conversations that might be strained, the relationships that might take years to heal. And those concerns are valid. I would not be honest with you if I pretended that love which requires sacrifice does not also require ongoing navigation. But here is what I want you to remember. Healthy relationships are not built on the absence of conflict. They are built on the presence of commitment. Every family, every marriage, every deep friendship will face moments of tension and disagreement. The question is not whether those moments will come, but how you will walk through them together. If someone has chosen you despite opposition, that choice was only the beginning. What comes next is the daily work of building something together, of communicating with honesty, of choosing grace when frustration rises, of being patient when healing takes longer than you hoped. This is not romantic in the movie sense of the word. It is romantic in the truest sense, the sense that recognizes love as a verb, an action, a daily decision to show up and do the work that lasting connection requires. And if you are both committed to that work, there is nothing that can stand against you. Not family disapproval, not external pressure, not the voices of doubt that will inevitably whisper in your ears. Love that is rooted in something deeper than circumstance cannot be uprooted by circumstances changing. I think of Paul's words in Romans, where he asks what can separate us from the love of Christ. He lists every imaginable obstacle, trouble and hardship and persecution and famine and nakedness and danger and sword. And after naming all of these things, he concludes with certainty that nothing can separate us from that. Love. And I believe that the love God plants between two people who are meant for each other carries that same resilient quality. It does not crumble under pressure. It grows deeper. It does not run from difficulty. It runs toward each other in the midst of difficulty. It does not keep score of who sacrificed more. It keeps showing up, day after day, choice after choice, until the obstacles that once seemed insurmountable become distant memories of a battle that only made you stronger. As I bring this reflection to a close, I want to speak directly to the deepest part of your heart, the part that still wonders if this message is really for you. the part that listens to words of encouragement and immediately begins listing the reasons why you are the exception. I see that part of you, and I want to speak truth directly into it. You are not the exception. You are not disqualified from the blessings God has prepared. You are not too broken, too old, too complicated, too anything to receive the love that has been fighting for you. The very fact that you are listening to this, that something in you resonated with these words, is evidence that your heart is still alive, still hoping, still believing, even when belief feels dangerous. That hope is not weakness. That hope is strength. That hope is the evidence of things not yet seen, the substance of things still being formed in the unseen realms. Guard that hope carefully. Do not let cynicism steal it from you. Do not let the disappointments of the past convince you that the future holds nothing good. Your story is not over, and the one who is writing it has proven time and time again that he knows how to bring beauty from ashes and joy from mourning. So tonight, as you lay your head down to rest, I want you to carry these truths with you into your dreams. You are worth choosing. You are worth fighting for. You are loved with a love that cannot be quantified or earned, and the one who sees your value will never stop seeing it, no matter what obstacles arise. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the God who has never failed to keep his promises. And trust that the best of your love story is still waiting to be written. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your heart. We meet again in another reflection. May you walk in the certainty that you are held, you are seen, and you are loved more than you will ever fully understand. Peace be with you, dear friend.